Hello and welcome to the Weekend Spread, the college football playoff show, live reaction. We've got Boatin Blake here as he awaits him and his Horned Frogs' fate in the college football playoff. Blake, tough loss yesterday. Talk to us a little bit about how that went down.
Yeah, it's probably the toughest loss I've had to deal with, just because of it's very similar, I would say, to TCU's run last year in the NCAA tournament, where by all accounts, if you look at it from a 1,000 feet view, TCU way overperformed this year. They were fantastic. 12-1 was something that none of us saw coming. I think I said 7-5 at the best. So if you view it through that lens, like yesterday, even though it was a really tough loss in OT, really close, it at least like we had a great season, but I just can't see it that way. I see it kind of how we did last year with the tournament, where yes, getting to the round of 32, almost beating Arizona, like that is a really good result for that team, but we had a chance to win that game in both of those, and like that's something that I'll never be able to forget. It's something I think I've tried to figure out ways around it, but it really sucks. Like yesterday really sucked that we went 12-0, won the Big 12 regular season title, and then lost in the actual championship game versus a good K-State team, but there was some bad play calling at the end. I didn't see the Kendre Miller review till after the game, and I had actually come to terms with just, we lost because of bad play calling. But then, of course, social media hyping me up again to get on the Big 12 refs. But I've come back down a little bit from that. I think it could have been a touchdown. Doesn't mean we would have won that game, but I would have rather had the shot than lose on a game-winning field goal. So I just don't think I'll ever get over this loss. But yeah, I feel bad for the boys.
Right.
I feel bad.
We need more emotion, Blake. This is too much sin.
We waited too long to go.
It's so sad just because it's like I watched the post-game press conference with Max Duggan, and he's just in tears wanting to bring home a trophy like to Fort Worth, and I feel that. It's just like I feel it just like I don't know what emotions to give, because it's not really anger, because I was a little angry at Sonny Dykes, but also Sonny Dykes has won us a lot of games this year, and I can't be angry at Max. Max had the best game probably of anybody in the conference championship games just by putting the team on his back. 95-yard drive to tie the game with 95 rushing yards. Like that man really turned it on yesterday, but yeah, like, I just don't know what other emotions to give besides despair. It sucked. Like, yesterday felt like my heart got ripped out of my chest, just because you start hyping yourself up, you think you can actually win the game, and then once you don't get it on 4th and 1, you know exactly what's going to happen. You hope, maybe a little bit in the back of your mind, that they're going to shank the field goal, but it's just, yeah. I don't know what other emotions to give. Anger, like, if you want to see angry, the CFP committee can determine that, because I think there is one it's clear as day this year for like the first time in a long time. It should be Georgia, Michigan, TCU, Ohio State, an easy 4, and if it's anything different than that, then you're going to see my blood boil. And then you're going to see my blood boil even more if somehow Alabama slips in for TCU. But that feels like one of those arguments that everybody on social media is like trying to be like, yeah, like TCU should get over Alabama. Like people are saying this. Like nobody was saying Alabama should get over TCU. Like nobody on social media, but everybody was using it as the straw man yesterday. Like it would be ridiculous if the committee did that. I'm like, nobody was advocating for this ever. But that, if we want to see anger, there could be some anger today, depending on how the committee decides to seed this bad boy.
Yeah,
Blake,
so I got to say something really quick. We got a lot of people in the chat. Just want to let you know what we got going on here. We got ESPN stream going on the side, and we'll be reacting to that. Blake over here is the resident TCU fan of the group, and right now they're just kind of doing their pre-rankings BS, talking around. So we'll continue to just kind of chat around, ask him about his stuff. And all that. I'm sorry, Ty. Go for it. Just had to let the viewers know what was going on. We will get to the rankings whenever ESPN, gives them to us.
Absolutely. And I am posing this question to Blake because it's been something that I've sort of talked about throughout the season, and I see some of our commenters commenting basically the same idea. Blake, how do you feel about, and this is sort of open-ended, just opine on this, if you will, but how do you feel about the fact that Obviously, we turn the clock back to 2014, and the Big 12 is doing their everyone plays everyone, one true champion round robin thing. And that is ultimately pointed at as probably the big thing that kept TCU out of the playoff was not having a conference championship game. Now TCU in striking distance of the playoffs again. We'll see here in a little bit. And potentially, now their resume is being knocked by this playoff game. And you see it in the comments too. People are asking, why do we have this conference championship game? Because now it was never in doubt that TCU was going to make the playoffs. And I don't think it is. But now, there is some doubt with this conference championship game dinging TCU's resume a little bit. How do you feel about the way that the Big 12 is choosing their champions right now?
Yeah, like the conference championship first, it shouldn't have existed ever. Like the great thing about the Big 12 has been it's a round robin format that you get to play every single team every single year. And like, I know they came out with a moniker that year, the one true champion. They're passing out the shirts on campus, stuff like that. That sometimes doesn't happen in a round robin. It sometimes is gonna have to lead to a tie, which is kind of up to the Big 12 to be like, yeah, like there's not gonna be one true champion, but like the conference, but we had to implement it just because they cited TCU and Baylor getting left out was the 13th data point. You had to keep the 13th data point, and that's the only way you can make the playoff, basically. So we added it, and now we have a weird situation where it's like, okay, TCU's 12-1, won the regular season, beat K-State. K-State beat them on a neutral field. K-State is the Big 12 champion. Like, they won the game, like the championship game, how it is. But how does that make sense in a round-robin format? Like, how does that make sense at all? And so, I don't think TCU should get dinged for it. I think it's one of those things. It's hard to strike a balance in the playoff era just because, like, you have a TCU, a USC. They went and played a 13th game against a ranked team, good quality opponents, lost, both of them, but it's like, I don't feel, I guess, as sorry for USC just because they have 2 losses, but it does suck for them. It does. Like, if they would have sat on their couch last week and Ohio State sat on their couch, USC would be in. So it's, like, hard for me to come to terms with the fact that the college football playoff on one hand is, like, 13th data point really matters, but then you can also get dinged for it. So, if anything, you should just always sit at the back at the 5 spot, just waiting for somebody in the 1 through 4 to lose because they're probably playing the games, and jump them, which doesn't really makes sense to me. Ohio State's a good team. I know they have great talent. I understand why people think they deserve it, but it really does suck. Like, they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything yesterday. They had their chance to make the playoff, and they lost at home by double digits to their rival. Like, at home, they had the game, not a neutral site game. So, yes, the committee has put an emphasis on the 13th data point, but also at the same time, they're punishing people for constantly taking that game. Like, rarely do you see the situation where somebody's moving up because they won that 13th game.
Right. And it's like they added it for only the situation that would have happened in 2014, where TCU and Baylor, pretty much shared the title. And in 2018, where it's like OU needs to beat Texas to avenge their loss. And I think it's just kind of silly, kind of useless. It gets in the way, especially with a round robin. But, here's one thing, Blake. We won't have to deal with this issue ever again with the Big 12 because of expansion. Next year, there'll be 14 teams. And then when OU and Texas leave, there'll be, a proper 12 again. So it's an issue that's about to resolve itself. And would be kind of hilarious if TCU got screwed on the last year that they possibly could get screwed on something like
hilarious. This. Hopefully that makes his blood boil just a little bit. We need some boiling blood.
What do you, Jameson wants me coming in here firing shots, but, I don't know,
I do.
Go ahead, Ty.
I do, ahead. Yeah, so, and this is, because Jameson's doing a bad job at his job of getting you stirred up, and I want to preface this by saying, I'm not just saying this to get you stirred up, but, in your defense, maybe you want to get ahead of this talking point, but if I'm looking at a situation where I'm comparing, and I realize both these teams are probably in, but if I'm looking at a situation where I'm comparing, say, Ohio State and TCU, I don't necessarily know that you can say TCU is a better team looking at their record, because Ohio State's loss is to a team that's undefeated, conference champs, and in the playoff. So there certainly are some talking points there.
There are, and the main reason why I don't think Ohio State should even remotely jump TCU is like if you look at it, the top 25 wins, TCU has almost double the top 25 wins. I understand the quality of loss argument, but it's like TCU didn't lose to some poverty team. They lost to a top 10 K-State team on a neutral site in overtime, which like a questionable, like even questionable at that, like it's as close as you could get it. And Ohio State had every opportunity. Like when you get an opportunity at home to put your rival away and go to the college football playoff, they didn't do that. They had every circumstance built around them in order to make it to the playoff, and they didn't pull through. And I understand why people are so gung-ho about putting Ohio State in, or maybe even Ohio State in front of TCU, just because they see that talent. They see they see the NFL talent that is on that squad, but you have to be able to balance who you think is good and who is deserving. And I think TCU kind of strikes that balance between the two. Like, I think Ohio State, like, yes, if they played on a neutral site, Ohio State is going to be favored. But we've seen countless times and times again this year, TCU has been an underdog at points, has been doubted and still gone on to win games. Like, that's why we play the sport. That's why Vegas doesn't determine the results and how, like, who wins the national championship just based on who they think is better. You got to play the games on the field, and I think TCU did that a little bit more this year, beating more top 25 teams than Ohio State, who, frankly, sat on their ass this past weekend, didn't do anything, and is going to get a spot in the college football playoff. So I think taking that chance at that 13th data point, you have to take that significantly less than something like Ohio State when they have the opportunity to control their own destiny and just blew it at home.
Right. And, not only that, but, I get the whole, oh, Michigan's really good. They are really good. But, that is very legitimately a bad loss for Ohio State. And then, like you said, TCU, they lost in overtime. Just that close. That's certainly not enough in my mind for Ohio State to jump them. And I don't think it's absolutely in any way a chance for a team like Alabama or, as ESPN is showing right now, Tennessee to jump them. Because, look, even though Alabama lost two close games, 2 is more than 1, as far as I know. I was pretty bad at math, but that's intro to logic at OU taught me that. So,
but don't you worry, Bobby. They got Marty Smith on grounds in Tuscaloosa just in case.
Ooh. Oh God!
How about Nick Saban going on? How about Nick Saban going on Fox and campaigning last night? I don't know if you saw that.
What do you suppose? Like, what do you want him to do? Like, of course he's gonna campaign. Like, people are gonna say, like, how dare he go out there and try to make their case? He's the head football coach of Alabama. He wants to play in the playoffs. Like, of course he's going to make an argument. You want him to just sit down and get in the fetal position and say they don't deserve it?
Yes, I do want that.
Well, I would like that. Yes. Okay, you're right. I would like that. But what do you think he's going to do?
Yeah, it is one of those things. Like, it's ESPN just trying to drum up a little bit of drama, but Bama has no reason to be anywhere close to the playoff, especially when TCU and Bama, for like the first time and probably forever, have a common opponent who TCU beat harder, like in the same situation with Texas's starting quarterback. So we literally have a shared data point where we can show that TCU played Texas better than Alabama did. It's just ESPN loves just being able to have somebody in the back to drum up the drama.
Well, I think the laziest point that people are making is like, oh, TCU didn't even beat Texas that bad. That's just someone who didn't watch the game. TCU had that game fully in control and completely shut UT's offense out of the end zone.
Yeah,
the only reason they scored
was the defense. Yeah. It was a stupid score, like in garbage
time. Yeah.
No one has ever played Texas like that either this whole year. It's an extremely unique data point for TCU and their win against Texas. Texas offense never looked like that for the rest of the season.
Yeah. They finished pretty strong, I would say. Like that Texas team had weapons. They just sometimes didn't kind of break them out. But this isn't about Texas. They're nowhere near the playoff.
So here's a question.
Let's not talk about Texas on this for too much longer.
Here's a question, and you keep hearing us bring it up, the data point discussion, and I'm seeing it a little bit in our live comments, which keep those coming in. We really appreciate those. But people are talking about the data points, the common opponents, but then also who you want to face. And I think this is almost silly to ask as a question because I think we're all in agreement here. But how much, and I'm posing this primarily to Blake, but to anyone and then our commenters as well, how much do you think the playoff committee, when they're looking at the top four, is actually ranking these teams what they think is 1, 2, 3, 4? Or how much do you think it is we've determined that these are the four going to the playoff, now let's stack them based on who we want to see as a matchup? Do you think it's a true 1 through 4, we think these are the 1, 2, 3, 4 best teams? Or do you think it's a matchmaking scenario where they've just chosen their 4 and then they're manipulating the numbers to prevent, say, a first round Ohio State Michigan rematch?
Yeah, like I think it's probably the latter. It's not a true 1 through 4 who they think are the best 4 teams. It's more 1 through 4 and who can we present a somewhat logical case to slot them in that slot. So, like, an example would be, like, say if they really wanted that Ohio State-Michigan rematch come in the Fiesta Bowl, they would be like, well, Ohio State, like, they, like, have all this talent, are so good, like, TCU had a chance to win in the conference finals, they lost, like, they're pretty reactionary week to week, and I know one of our friends brought it up of, like, where they slot people, and, like, they can do that. I feel like this year it's not as good of an argument. Like, I feel like the top 4 is pretty logical this year of how it should fall in place, but like we saw it kind of in 2014. It's like TCU was 3 going into the final rankings, and then they plummeted them to the bottom, and like they just bring out kind of the 13th data point reason. It's like there's so many stats out there in college football and so many different ways to look at how results happened on the field that you can come up with, I think, are wacky, but some people can think are logical cases of why teams should be slotted in certain positions. And I think the College Football Playoff Committee is very aware of that and uses some of those cases sometimes to kind of fudge the field in order to get either favorable matchups or, in the case of like the SEC, as we've seen in the past, to avoid matchups that we just recently saw. And so it's kind of lazy for them. They wait till kind of the final week to then make all this magic happen. Like, even though we've known all the numbers this entire time, but I do think it's like they try to use statistics in a very favorable way in order to get them how they kind of want them.
Yeah, and I said it in the comments. Do you really want to put Michigan versus Ohio State as the semi game? It just feels like it's too soon of a rematch. But we've seen these epic rematches happen in the college football playoff final. So if you are a committee and you're thinking biased in your head, because they do, obviously in the back of their head, they're thinking, we are the brand, we have to make it look good. They don't want to put TCU at 4 and have Michigan, Ohio State 2 versus 3, and have that game, legitimately Ohio State's back-to-back games be versus Michigan. They'd want that chance to be played in the playoff, in the final, whenever they could really advertise that game, make it this epic rematch. Ohio State overcame adversity and won as the 4 seed versus Georgia, and now they're fighting against Michigan again, and to see if they can win a national championship. That just makes more sense as a biased committee member.
Right. And it looks like the selection is about to come up. They just kind of pulled up a list of like the schedule. It looks like they're talking to Boo Corrigan in about 10 minutes. So I'm guessing we're about to get the reveal soon. Thank you all for sticking with us. ESPN, we don't control this. They're pulling our chain here. You never know when they're going to drop it, if they're going to put in a bunch of filler or if they're going to go just straight from the hip at 11 o'clock. So we appreciate y'all hanging out, getting the TCU fan perspective on this one with our pal Boatin Blake. But yeah, Blake, I gotta ask. Oh no, go ahead, Ty. You got it.
I was gonna say I have a quick talking.
Here it is.
point.
Here it is, guys.
Here it is.
Ty, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right, we will let Blake react. It's going 1 through 4.
Pop in the comments.
1 through 4. So we got Georgia's number 1, obviously expected. Won the SEC championship. That should be. We should know 1 and 2. That is easy. That is easy.
Georgia's a no-brainer.
So
yeah, they've just been head and shoulders above the rest of college football this year. They're the definite contender, number 1 in my book.
Oh, I can't breathe. I cannot breathe. I'm gonna be. I will say I will be livid if I see TCU as 4.
Did anyone see Ladd McConkey's injury? Because I saw he on the bottom ticker he had a leg injury.
Oh, I did not.
I
I'm
didn't
trying to
notice Slide
see if
McConkey got
it's-
hurt. I
I'll-
saw
I'll look if it's serious.
Okay,
Very
number 2 is
British name.
Michigan.
Yeah, there's number 2, Michigan. So right now it's looking like Georgia in the Peach Bowl, Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl. 3 is going to determine essentially who plays the Wolverines in the desert. So big selection coming up.
Here you
Yeah,
go,
Bama,
Blake.
let's go, Bama.
Here it is.
Does Blake have to rebook his flight?
I know. Already booked a flight to Arizona. That would really suck, considering all the flights to Atlanta are basically sold out now. So it would
is.
be a world of pain. Come on.
That drive to Atlanta is just not the funnest
I am like,
thing.
my heart. Yesterday, I got multiple notifications on my Apple Watch. It's like, your heart beats over 120 beats per minute when you're sitting down. What's going on? I'm like, Apple, read the room. I'm at Jerry's World. You know what I'm doing right now. I know you're watching me from every camera. Like, you know I'm sitting here, and that's why I'm nervous. Oh, Jesus. Are they going to, like, start from, like, 6 now? Reveal it.
Come on, give us
Come
that
on.
3.
Come on. Oh, my God.
Man, they are milking.
We
this
don't have the
so
audio, so I
hard.
don't know what they're doing. If they're gonna go to commercial break, like I see at least the little X's around it moving, so I know I
Oh,
didn't.
there we
accidentally
go.
press- Wait, where?
It is.
Yes! Yes!
TCU 3.
TCU 3.
The Frogs
Yes!
into the playoff, redeemed, second team in Big 12 history to join the college football playoff. Welcome to the club, Blake.
Thank you. Wow, this is honestly a super, or I think Michigan's really good. Like, we saw it against Purdue yesterday. They went out and just lit them up. We kind of alluded to that on the weekend spread. Like, even Blake Corum not being there, like, they were going to pound them. But, yes, as a TCU fan, I would rather take Blake Corumless Michigan and try my luck there than the defending national championship in Georgia, who's just been, like, pumping teams. Their defense is, like, impossible to move on at points, and I know TCU would probably be one of the better offenses that they've seen this year for Georgia, but I'm too scared. Like, I'm too scared of them. Like, I expect, like, if we're going initial reactions, I expect Michigan to probably win this game. Like, Michigan has the better talent.
We'll get real deep on the Fiesta
Okay.
Bowl here in a bit, but let's see who gets 4. Is it Ohio State or is it Alabama? It's got to be the Buckeyes, right?
No,
It has to be.
Way if it's Alabama,
It would be hilarious. I would.
It
That
would be
will set
genuinely
Blake
funny.
off even more. The ESPN conspiracy.
Marty Smith boots on the ground just in case.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
Because
But
you
everyone
do
in the
know-
comments, by the way, we'll get to y'all in a moment. We just want to be synced for the initial reaction. But yeah, no, boots on the ground, Marty Smith.
And you know ESPN hates this. They see 2 properties that are going to be Fox, going to be NBC, going to be, I believe, CBS as well in the Big Ten, going to the college football playoff. You know, ESPN was calling the playoff committee this morning and being like, you got to do something. Like, this can't be bad. And there it is. Ohio State moves up into the 4 slot. Whether you agree with that or not, they move up to 4. I'm curious to see who 5 and 6 is, just to see how much they ding USC, which was a really bad loss. But at least they went there. It's Utah just kind of has USC's number, so I'm curious to see if they put them at 5 or at 6. I believe they should be 5.
They've been good about like situational awareness. Obviously, their defense really let them down, and we can talk about USC's tackling for days. But, you know, not having their star player is an absolute gut punch in that second half. So they have used that as like, I understand this was a bad loss, but then Caleb Williams did get hurt. They have given grace to those kind of teams in the past.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, but I mean,
yeah.
I could still see Alabama at 5 and USC at 6. I mean, USC is playing in the Cotton Bowl either way. They're playing Tulane, which is going to be a blast of a game. A Tulane, a physical team that gave Lincoln Riley trouble last year in Norman, and then you have to go against them again and just see what happens. I mean, that's going to be a really fun game for me to watch, personally.
I really wanted to see USC's tackling versus Deuce Vaughn. I know there was no possible way that could happen. Alabama at 5.
Tennessee.
Jesus.
And
And Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Oh, I disagree. I disagree. What
SEC
the heck?
bias. Yes.
Holy crap. I know it doesn't really matter, but Jesus Christ. Oh,
man.
God. Oh, my God. How? Oh my lord, how?
Who is on the committee this year? Is this a biased committee?
Well, every committee is biased. Are you kidding me? You bring in extremely
yeah.
high representatives and sometimes like senators, I guess, to be on this.
Condoleezza
Because why
Rice
not?
for some reason.
How? Okay, I could maybe understand Bama at 5. Maybe. I don't understand Tennessee above USC, which we've already seen the college football playoff last week ding Tennessee for losing Hendon Hooker for the year. That's why they rank Alabama over a team that they lost to. But now Tennessee is somehow better than USC? I don't get that. I don't get that logic, and I know it doesn't matter, but like it should matter that these are the decision makers that decide our season, and they are making dumb decisions like this.
USC had
Like-
a bad loss, but South Carolina just put up
I know!
3 versus
Well-
Tennessee. Like, what?
Where do you think South Carolina would be in the Pac-12 though, if they made that run?
I don't, not very high. Like, they are so inconsistent.
Yeah.
They are so bad. Like,
But so
South
with like
Carolina
that's the same case with like every Pac-12 team. UCLA, Oregon, you know.
yeah, like they could have been at the top, but like they could have easily lost to Utah. Like they could have
South
easily
Carolina
lost
was
to
not gonna be
Oregon.
at
Like,
the top of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's
Let's
nice
Let's
about
just
the
stop that
the
real
Pac.
quick.
Yeah, that's the thing that's nice about the Pac-12 though, is then you can just beat up on like Cal and Stanford and all those other garbage teams, and then basically it's a toss-up against the rest of the Pac-12.
and I do feel bad for USC in this sense, which is words I never thought I would say, but Utah is just like kind of the exact opposite team of them, which is a problematic, especially with speed defense. Like we just saw Cam Rising, Kincaid just really bully them. Like they couldn't tackle them to save their lives, and it's just because they are a super physical team. Like they're the most physical team in the Pac-12. USC going to the Big Ten is going to be danger, considering what we saw. Like, Utah is kind of the most Big Ten Pac-12 team and just bullied them around. But I feel bad. Like, that's obviously their team that they can't beat. They lose to them twice and now are getting dinged for it because these other teams, Bama, Tennessee, lost twice. And, like, really, besides Tennessee had an impressive season, but Alabama really didn't look that good this year. I don't know. I disagree with the committee here.
I mean, Alabama's 2 losses were on the last play of the game in overtime to LSU and
That is true.
Tennessee. It's kind of like we're really judging Alabama versus the previous Alabama teams, which may or may not be fair because they're still a good football team. They still played a really tough schedule, played pretty well. They just aren't as dominant as they haven't been in the past.
That's the thing. I'm just so baffled by the fact that they dinged Tennessee for losing Hendon Hooker and now are improving them. I just don't get that logic, how Tennessee dropped in the rankings last week behind Bama and now is going ahead of USC, another 2-loss team, and kind of the presumption was Tennessee dropped so low was because they lost their quarterback for the year.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, let's get into some of the matchups we have here. So, obviously, I think these are 2 great matchups. Excited for both of them.
Super
let's start.
easy.
Let's start out. Let's start out with Georgia and Ohio State.
Phoenix over Atlanta.
No, let's start with TCU.
Are we comparing the games
let's start
or
with
the
TCU,
games?
Michigan, because I just saw
Yeah.
Action Network's post that got sent in one of our group texts. 9.5-point spread, Blake. TCU, Michigan. Like
Taking that.
9.5.
I am taking that 100%. We've seen Michigan Blake Corumless once, and it was versus Purdue, which we highlighted on the weekend spread, doesn't really have that good of a defense. They can't stop the run. They can't do anything. Like, yes, we also did highlight Michigan has a serviceable backup, and it looks like J.J. McCarthy has really taken kind of the next step as a thrower. We saw it against Ohio State, finally launching some deep bombs, which is concerning, but I think 9.5 is too many points. Like, TCU's defense has played, I think, excellent at the end of the year. Like, yesterday versus K-State, Deuce Vaughn, a really hard, like, I would say he's up there with Blake Corum as one of the top running backs in America. Yes, they did some funky stuff where they were throwing him out in the slot and stuff to give him some space, getting some catching yards and stuff, but TCU was able to limit the damage that could have been Deuce Vaughn running all over us yesterday. And so I feel comfortable with TCU's run defense to keep them in check and just kind of put the game in J.J. McCarthy's hands, which they have the talent. They can beat us, but 9.5 points, I just think Vegas has been wrong about this TCU team most of the year, and the numbers still just haven't caught up.
Yeah, another question, like with Max Duggan, he really looked like he was beat up. Was this just more of like he had just taken the brunt of the defense of Kansas State over and over and had all those cuts over his body? Or are you like concerned with like any of his long-term play? Like, is he going to be 100%, you think, coming into the CFP?
I think so. There was nothing to, he was probably dinged up a little bit yesterday, but nothing to say, like, long-term injury, won't be able to play. Like, I guess the best thing for us, we have a month to get some of these guys healthy, QJ to get a little bit more rest, Darius
He
Davis.
still isn't there.
I
Man,
know.
Quentin Johnston has to go out every single time he does a deep ball. Like, he runs a 9 route, and then he takes a break. And it'll be third down, like they just ran the deep ball on second down. Third down, you're taking out your best player. Like, what?
And that's concerning because, like, what I saw yesterday is he can only go long. He can't cut on his ankle right now. Like, he can't do any of, like, when Quentin Johnson was most effective for us this season was, like, yes, he is a good deep threat, but him cutting across the middle on a slant to go for, like, 20, 25 yards, like, he's unique combination of speed, size, everything is what makes him an elite receiver. And yesterday we saw he can't really put much on his legs. He can't do much cutting. All he can really do is rely on that straight line speed. And so I think like that month is going to really help him get back. I think Darius Davis really needs to get back. I know he's doing kickoffs, wasn't doing punts, but we really haven't seen him being able to get back in kind of like the wide receiver sweep game or some of those. He had a few clutch catches and stuff like that. But I think this time, this rest will be really good for TCU. I think it would have scared me a lot more with this rest versus Georgia, just because I'm always scared of those SEC, or it's not the SEC, it's just Georgia and Alabama. I'm worried about them. But
TCU had like a super early bye week, didn't they?
oh my god, yes, it's third week. We always get it each year. It doesn't make sense. We play like 2 games and play so we haven't had a bye week. We've had a rough stretch of games. We had Kansas kind of a bye week versus Iowa State, Kansas State, Iowa State, Baylor, Texas, and then that was our November basically. So a rough month. It'll be good to rest up. I'd be a little bit more worried if it was Kirby Smart that had a month to game plan against us. I am a little bit worried about Jim Harbaugh, but I don't think Jim Harbaugh poses the same threat as Kirby Smart or Georgia or even kind of Ohio State or Ryan Day. Like, I think even though Michigan beat them, Ohio State's kind of that Texas, like Texas was super elite talent. It's like if they put it together, they can really run up the score on you.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup. Obviously, Wolverines didn't look great against Purdue, but, who knows how hard they kind of went against them, how much they wanted to show against them. This Michigan team's damn good.
That second half was night and day, too. That first half was obviously they came out and they were not ready.
Yeah, it's a Michigan team that, has been pretty dang good this season. They've had their moments of greatness, and then sometimes they'll just kind of look bad against lower tier competition. It's a winnable game for TCU. I think some of the people I talk with that are pretty big into Michigan, I think might be overlooking the Frogs a bit. I think it seemed like universally they all would rather play TCU than let's say USC. They didn't want to play USC at all. But I don't know. I think the Frogs are scrappy. I think they're tough. I think they're a very mentally tough team that really they never get down on themselves. I feel like they've been put in so many tough scenarios that I think they'll be good against us, especially with no quorum. So I'm excited to see how that shakes out for sure. Ty, what are your thoughts on Michigan TCU to start?
Yeah, I'm very much excited for it because like you guys talked about, I think there's high potential that Michigan sort of sleeps on this game. Like we saw first half against Purdue, obviously not to diminish Michigan's accomplishments, their resume, their players, and their coaches. They have everything. They earned their spot to the playoff the hard way. So did TCU. No one in this playoff right now, besides maybe Ohio State, you can make an argument there, got in the easy way. And it is going to be a tough matchup regardless. But I think TCU just being absolutely forged through the schedule that they've had, not to say that their schedule is any tougher, but just the way that it played out for them, playing from behind, fighting from the ground and on their back, basically, in scrapping to everything. TCU is no stranger to these really scrappy games. Obviously, Michigan has fought some hard fought games as well. But I don't think that Michigan has faced a team like TCU. I started to make this comparison last night during the Big 12 championship game when I really started to see it. And because we're sort of, I know we have listeners and viewers from all over, but I know we're sort of OU centric on our main pod and on this one as well. But when I see this TCU team, I see like a Baker Mayfield OU team. I mean, I made the comparison last night, those last couple drives with Duggan especially, it looked like the ghost of Baker Mayfield took over for him. And he was just out there putting it all out on the line just for the team and for the conference. I really loved what I saw from Duggan. And it's a shame that TCU, when it mattered the most, took the ball out of the hands of their most crucial offensive player. But I think that TCU has the scrappiness to really have a good showing in this first round. So I really think anything is possible. Obviously, we can dive into that 9 line of the spread and how plausible that is. But I think anything is possible in this first round with TCU and Michigan.
Yeah. Like, I also got to ask, does this kind of take away the sting a little bit from yesterday? Because it really shows that game did not matter at all.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's going to be hard because it's like you wanted, at the end of the day, like, this could happen. We could just lose to Michigan, and it feels wrong that this squad went away with no hardware when it's probably one of the best TCU teams I've seen in my lifetime. And so, especially when you think of the 2014, the 2010, 2011 with Andy Dalton and stuff, like, I want this team to have some hardware to really feel like they hit their fullest potential. Like, I'm definitely glad, I'm 100% glad we did not move away from the Fiesta Bowl. I was talking to the guys earlier. I had a flight booked to Arizona just because the flights were like flying off the shelves come Wednesday, and so I had to choose a location. I chose Arizona, and there were not many flights this morning left to Atlanta, and so I was going to be flying probably some weird Spirit hours, and I did not want to do that. So I'm just overjoyed, and I'm so happy to have like this opportunity. Like, I feel so much better about playing Michigan than Georgia. Like, I feel I can see a way we can win this game. I do not see a way we could have beaten Georgia. Like, there was no way. So, although, like, I am really sad, I finally have some happiness to at least hedge it with a little bit, that I'll get to see my team in a college football playoff game. As Bobby mentioned, the only other team besides OU from the Big 12 that has gone to a college football playoff game. That's wild. That's wild for a school that K-State fans and just in general Big 12 fans, like, they forget TCU is only about 8,000, 9,000 kids. Like, it's not a super huge school. It's really, really tiny. And so they think of this as, they're like, oh, nobody supports TCU. Nobody goes to games. Actually, we get great support. We just don't have a lot of people. We don't have bodies. But this year's good for the brand. It's building those t-shirt fans like Ty always talks about, and what's important when building a college football brand. So I'm happy. I'm happy for this game. I'm excited for the prospects of going against a Michigan team, which I think we can keep it close with. And I also think we can beat them. So that is a good feeling, and will at least soften the blow a little bit of what happened yesterday.
Yeah. And also, just to be honest, I kind of think, the Fiesta Bowl, Arizona sounds a little bit more fun than Atlanta. I think that'll be a good trip for sure.
Yeah, you don't get it like any kind of trophy from going to the playoff, but you get so much free gear and so much free stuff. Like, at least you'll have that as kind of a memory for like the players, at least.
You get a plaque.
Yeah. And we can hang probably some sort of banner or something in our stadium, like college football playoff participant or something like that. Which
kind of like a Final Four banner.
Yeah.
That should be a thing. That really should be a thing, honestly.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Is that the college football system, awards-wise, just hasn't really caught up, basically. Like, the system of all the trophies and everything else is still very much the system that dated back to the BCS and even pre-BCS, just bowl era, where it was just bowl games, and then the media was picking the champion. No one has any problem with basketball hanging Final Four banners. Some basketball teams will hang like Sweet 16 banners and stuff. And I think TCU, like Blake said, just being a tiny school, tiny market, is tremendous accomplishment that they even made it to the playoff. And I think especially when we expand to a 12-team playoff, this being one of the teams that made it when it was only 4, I think is going to be even more special. And I would not be surprised whatsoever if 5-10 years down the line, Final Four or whatever you want to call it, banners or trophies or awards or something else are common within stadiums. Because I think that especially with some teams, once we go to a 12-team playoff, making it to the 4-team rounds will be even harder. I really do think that, because I think that we saw with say Cincinnati last year. Maybe it's a little easier as a small market team to really stamp your resume and make it into the 4-team one if you get lucky.
Yeah.
Because you have to prove it. You have to prove it in a couple rounds in a 12-team. So I really think I would not be surprised if you're the first team to do it, like if TCU put on their stadium, made it to the college football playoff or something, they might get some flack. It might be kind of cringy to be the first people to do it, but I don't think that will be uncommon at all in the future.
To be fair, TCU has a logo from every single bowl they've played in on their upper deck, so it's not like they don't already celebrate everything. They have a Blue Bonnet Bowl logo posted up at Amon G. Carter Stadium, so I think they're not too worried about that.
Yeah,
personally,
I forgot they have a Gary Patterson trophy. They have a statue for an assistant coach at Texas. So.
An awfully small statue, like
two life size. That's funny.
Yeah.
And I think go ahead, Blake.
Oh, I think Ty brings up a great point. Like, this is probably for a future podcast episode or some off-season content, but 12-team playoffs is going to be really fun because I think most people who are cynical see it as, Alabama's just going to still get there. It adds more steps. And, yes, we kind of see that in the NCAA tournament. The Final Fours, some of them are surprising, but most of them can be pretty, blue blood chalk. But it's the journey in order to get there can be really fun. It's you could have a St. Peter's, you could have in this 12-team playoff just some Sunbelt team, maybe upset somebody one year. Maybe they get blown out the next round, but that's a huge mark in their history, a huge mark in their success, and a really fun moment for them. That just because I think people, when they see the 12-team playoff, they're the same teams are going to win the national championship. Probably yes, but it's more fun. The process to get there is way more fun, and it includes more teams that are going to remember those moments for a lifetime. You remember those Cinderella stories in March Madness, not because they won the tournament or made the Final Four. You remember them because they won a game or two, and that really means the world to those schools. And so that's what I'm really excited for the 12-team playoff, to kind of see that unfold in college football.
For sure. Well, Jameson, do we want to talk about Ohio State and Georgia here a little bit? We've kind of focused heavy on the Frogs and the Wolverines, rightfully so. But let's kind of delve in a little bit on this matchup. So obviously Georgia has been the team so far, been steamrolling a lot of teams in college football, undefeated, very worthy number 1 seed. This was the national championship for some people, I think, before entering Ohio State Michigan week. What do you think about this matchup?
Mine too.
Yeah, and it's not insane to think that. So pretty tough test for the Dogs to start out. What do you think about this game?
I love it because Georgia, we talk about their defense all the time. We got an absolutely stout defense, and how could it even be better than all of this with all the stars that they lost last year? But they continue to show us time and time again. But I think going against a really good offense in Ohio State should showcase this Georgia offense to the world even more. That's not getting enough respect. Georgia's offense is potent. They put up numbers every single week, seems like. And I feel like we just continue to talk about Georgia's defense. Stetson Bennett said it in his post game last night. He's like, yeah, we got a lot of good players, and I think I'm a pretty good player at football too. We got to start talking about guys like Kenny McIntosh. Their tight end room in Georgia is just unbelievable. They just push people around on that offensive line and get exactly what they want. And I'm curious to see, going against Ohio State team that has a lot of really big-time 5-star defensive line talent as well, like JT Tuimoloau, or however you pronounce that, has been really good at Ohio State as well. They've got some talent. So I think this is a perfect first-round matchup, and we got to start talking about more Georgia offense.
Absolutely. And, our partners at DraftKings have just released their first early lines for this as well. Georgia favored by 6.5 to start this out. So a lot of respect for the Buckeyes to open up this matchup. Ty, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I'm going to take I hate the term contrarian. I'm going to take the devil's advocate thing here. I know it was sort of a cold take at the end of the day after the game, the Michigan-Ohio State game. They call it the game because they are super humble up there in the Midwest. But I made this take coming into the game, and a lot of people have said, oh, Ohio State hasn't really played anyone. And now the storyline has changed to Ohio State hasn't really played anyone. And when they did, in their one game that they did, it was a fairly embarrassing showing. I think that could still help Ohio State. I'm gonna take the Ohio State side on this one in terms of the podcast. I think there's great potential in the fact that Ohio State hasn't really played anyone, because we still know that they have quality players. We know that they have an excellent coach. Georgia has all of those things as well. But I don't really think Georgia's a look ahead and sleep on someone team, especially when that opponent is Ohio State. But I would not count Ohio State out of this one whatsoever. I'm very happy with, again, like you mentioned, our partners at DraftKings, where they opened that line at 6.5. I think that's pretty realistic. I don't think that people that think Georgia might run away with this one, they very well could. All the pieces are there, but if I'm looking at a game, no disrespect to TCU, but if I'm looking at these two games and you said one of these is going to be an upset, I would maybe put my money on Ohio State upsetting Georgia in this one, which would just be absolutely hilarious to get Ohio State, Michigan again in the national championship. I would refuse to watch. I would be disgusted by it, but I would not sleep on Ohio State just outright in this one, because they're still a good team, even though they've stumbled. I mean, we see it with TCU coming into this playoff. Is just because you stumbled once does not mean that you are down for the count. We saw it all through championship week as well, to my detriment when it comes to the weekend spread. But teams that lost in the regular season against people that they were matched up against, again, did exceedingly well, in spite of what Blake will tell you, or in spite of what Blake told you on the last podcast about how people don't beat teams that they lost against. Every team that K-State beat the team that they lost against. Tulane beat the team they lost against. Fresno beat the team they lost against. I think I'm actually missing one more in there. But yeah, it's just, I think there's great upset potential in here. Do not count the Buckeyes out just yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is a great matchup of kind of opposing styles. Georgia is pretty tough, pretty gritty, obviously very, very solid, and Ohio State is flash. And my thing is, what got Ohio State beat the last time we saw them was because they weren't tough enough. They got punched in the mouth by Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, and they were not able to respond. They were mentally soft. Their offense just didn't do enough, and that was the game. Now they're facing basically a overly better version of that Michigan team that ate their lunch at the Horseshoe. How are they going to respond? How is Ryan Day going to handle it? How are you going to deal with that Michigan game, but cranked up to 11? And I'm really, really excited to see how they handle that. Because I think they can bounce back. I think they have the talent to bounce back, but it's a big, big show me what you've got moment for Ryan Day. Ty, I saw you raise your hand. What do you want?
I had a point that I forgot to mention. That is, because I know you're about to pass it to Jameson and Blake. Blake, in case you're sleeping on it, there is ESPN SEC Georgia getting a game in Atlanta talking point here. So don't forget that, as they've tried to obfuscate and hide that. But Georgia getting basically a home game in Atlanta.
That's why I don't really like the Peach Bowl very much. It's the one bowl game that, like, you put it smack dab, basically the biggest city in the SEC. It makes it easy for any SEC team to get to. I like the fact that, like, Rose Bowl, we haven't seen many good Pac-12 teams happen. Florida, Miami's not good. Phoenix, we know how the Arizona teams are. I kind of like having them a little bit more spread out than the Peach Bowl. And especially, I don't know. It's just like, we've seen Georgia play, is this second time or third time this year in Atlanta?
This will be the third time. They opened the
third time.
Because they opened up against Oregon, SEC championship, and now in the Peach Bowl.
So I'm just kind of tired of it. Like, I know the brand new Atlanta stadium, really nice, yada yada yada, but I'm just tired of Atlanta being kind of like a college football destination. Just not the best of the bowls by far.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, the thing that's annoying about it is the Cotton Bowl, which should be the Big 12's bowl, is so close to Alabama that Alabama just gets it every time. They pick it over the Orange Bowl every single time. So teams like OU or whoever never make it because Alabama keeps nipping them.
Yep, like it also, like, I know Nick Saban has alluded to this in the past. They love, like, I guess how boring DFW is compared to Miami. Like, it's easy to keep your players, like, you're not gonna go wild in Arlington. You're not gonna go goof off. Like, it's really easy to keep everybody in line. And so that's why when you see the Cotton Bowl is ever introduced, most teams are picking the Cotton Bowl just
Make
because
Arlington a crazier city. That's what we need to do, Blake. We need to
that's
make
how you
Arlington
live, you live there.
crazy.
make
That's
Arlington crazy.
Well, hold on. Are you trying to tell me that people aren't distracted by the allures of Six Flags over Texas?
Okay,
Six
that is
Flags
good
over
point.
Texas
That was a really good point.
Hurricane Harbor.
Hurricane Harbor in January in Dallas.
Texas
Ugh.
Live with their cover charges. What the heck is
They're
this?
cover charging live now.
Oh my god! Yesterday they were charging $20 per
Unbelievable.
head. After
Oh,
the game too.
oh,
After the game,
oh.
I understand if you wanted to go there and actually watch the game, like why you'd want to cover charge. But after the game, when people just like kind of want to like drink, wait for Uber prices to go down, like they were still charging that much, and I'm like, well, like my Uber's coming, so I'm not gonna pay that much. But
No,
screw you,
it's a
Texas
racket.
Live.
It's a racket. So I gotta say, Blake, what are your thoughts on the Ohio State Georgia game? Like in terms of this matchup, I know we've kind of round robined and took a little bit to get you there, but what do you think?
Yeah, I honestly really love this matchup. Like, I think it a sour taste in my mouth that Ohio State's in the playoff, but at least I think this is going to be a really entertaining game. I think Georgia has very, very few flaws. If you look at just the raw numbers themselves, they put up great offensive stats, great defensive stats every game, and like really the only thing you can knock them on is some close games versus some teams, but that's the thing, is like their defense is so overpowering that even in bad efforts, they can keep themselves in games. Like, that is fantastic. And if you look at Ohio State, I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but kind of like Texas on steroids. It's like, if they put this game together, they can win this. They can easily win this. And I kind of agree with Ty, even though I'm a big diehard TCU fan. Like, if you're going to think of one upset, I kind of see Ohio State just because the obvious talent is there. My thing is that I'm worried is Ryan Day's coaching. I felt like when they were going up against Michigan, whenever they got down, they abandoned the run super quick and were just putting everything on CJ Stroud to try to get him out of it. And although they have elite receivers and elite throwing, you have to be a little bit more balanced. Like, you can't go all one-dimensional when you're down and try to fight back in games. Like, that's how you get quick 3-and-outs and give the ball back to the other team. You need to grind out possessions. You need to learn how to be a little bit more multi-dimensional and just defensive wise be a little bit more physical. But I think this is going to be a great game. Like, I think ESPN and the college football playoff got their wish in this, that you're going to get two really entertaining games, and kind of like for the first time in a while, like, I don't think usually you're scared about the 1-4 blowout. I'm not worried about that this time. I think we have two really good solid matchups, and I can honestly see Ohio State upsetting Georgia. I think Georgia's rightfully a touchdown favorite, basically, but I think that's going to be a close game.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's I think it's going to be the best, like a really, really good game. But I feel like sometimes in the college football playoff, we've been like, oh, this is going to be a great playoff game, and then it turns out to be a dud. I think this is a coin flip on dud versus good game. But look, Ohio State has the talent to do it. The Buckeyes are just flush with talent across the board on offense. They're not an underdog. They don't play the role of underdog often. So I think they have a chance to do it, but Ryan Day and the Buckeyes have to figure it out, or else it's history is going to repeat itself, and they're going to get beat pretty bad here. So yeah. All right. Well, we've kind of covered both of these games pretty good. We did our reaction a little bit earlier. We'll make sure to just tweet out just Blake reacting a little later so we can kind of put that together. But it's bowl season, guys. And with bowl season, that comes, it's time for bowl mania. It's time for our annual weekend spread bowl challenge, which it's going down tonight. And not only that, but it's going to be a pretty nice pot this year. We're giving out $100 to the winner, 25 or 35 for second, and 15 to third. And you're going to be going up against us for. So come and beat us. If you've been listening to us all year long and be like,
completely free too.
It's completely free. We're giving away free money. So come in, try to take us out. We'll give out details in a bit, but the best way to figure that out, hit that subscribe button, and we'll give out more details on the OU Bowl First Reactions pod going live tonight. Because y'all might be new here. We have a lot of people listening live on YouTube, but this is normally an Oklahoma football podcast. And we'll do a little bit of college football on the side here with the weekend spread with our pal Boatin Blake, TCU fan. So it's a little bit different today, but we certainly appreciated all of y'all listening in, and would love to see y'all out there in the Bowl Mania. I think it's going to be pretty spicy, guys. What do you guys think?
It's going to be fun, but subscribe if you like free money.
Yeah, it's let me pitch it a different way. Let me pitch it a cynical way. If you know college football, like Jameson said, it's probably free money. You could probably beat us. Our winner this year, Jameson, is, I believe, under 500 all time in his picking.
No, I am.
He's over now. He's over now.
I'm exactly.
Oh, you're right at 500. Yeah.
So this year put me 16 games above.
Yeah. So our winner this year, Jameson, 500 all time. I went 500 this year. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Boatin Blake takes it way too seriously and constantly messes up. And then Bobby, you just never know. He had a Heisman level performance this past week, but he's been down bad some other weeks. So it is certainly, if you like college football and follow it, definitely we encourage you guys to join. And this is all made possible by, again, our wonderful sponsors at DraftKings. If you're somewhere where you can use them, or even if you can't use them there, I use their app to go check lines on things. It's very, very simple. On your phone, even though I can't use it fully where I live. But if you go and create an account, please use our promo code TPPN, because that is what directly supports us and hopefully you guys, if you're going to win some money from us, which we hope so.
Yeah,
right.
It's gonna be fun. Bobby said that there's an option on ESPN for we can pick against the spread this year in terms of bowls, which we don't get any sickos committee where it's just gonna be picking like who we think's gonna win on a 15.5 point spread. So that is totally up our alley. I'm so excited for that. We'll be reacting to a couple of the bowls, but mainly the Oklahoma one tonight. I'm really excited.
Yes, and we'll be giving our full bowl picks. Our bowl pick pod is always fun, so we'll be just ripping through those in the coming weeks as we get our schedule sorted out. And then, of course, previewing Oklahoma's bowl against whoever that may be. But that's all we have for today, or for this episode. We'll be back tonight and back later this week, of course, as Ty is indicating, for Army Navy to preview that matchup. College football. The main part is over, but there's still a lot more to it. And we're running through the tape here, folks. So I know I'm pumped. But Blake, this is your day. This is your moment for the Frogs. You close us out. Your final statement on what has been a great season for TCU, a great run to the Big 12 championship game, and now college football playoff participants. Take it away.
Yep. This is honestly, it really is a dream come true. I was there in 2014 in the dining hall whenever I got my heart ripped out on national television, what it felt like whenever I saw TCU fall to 6 after being number 3. But even though I'm still a little bit down about the result tomorrow, this is honestly I'm honestly about to tear up because I cannot believe that I get to see my Horned Frogs in the college football playoff. This is the most insane moment of being a TCU fan. Our fan base is not big, but we are vocal. We love our team so much, and it's just so great to see the Horned Frogs finally do this. I get to go to a college football playoff game in Arizona. That is awesome. That is an awesome thing that I get to say, and so yesterday sucks, but we have a chance to redeem ourselves and maybe go make a national title. Like, that's wild. We could maybe be in a national title game, which is just something I would never think of this team. Props to Sonny Dykes. Props to Max Duggan. Maybe Heisman winner. Who knows? Probably not. But I would love it. He embodies everything that is good about college football and why we love this sport. So I would love to see it. But go Frogs, baby.
Go Frogs, indeed. We're all behind TCU on this run, I'm pretty sure. So give them hell, TCU. Good luck out there in college football playoff.
Is that it?
It's like it's this, yeah. It's like that.
Okay,
like,
but it's just your two finger. Like these other fingers don't.
It's just
it can be.
Yeah. It's two
Peace sign,
fingers.
make it
closed
This
in
is
like
kind
this.
of a bear.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're giving you. We're
You
giving
gotta make sure
everybody.
the gang
You
sounds
flex
it right.
at your PIP
Well, no, if it's
joint,
too high up, then
Ty,
it's
if that
SMU.
needs any clarification.
Yeah.
Flex at your PIP joints.
We honestly need to do a video on how to
Don't
properly.
make this.
Oh,
Let's get
God,
a
don't make
Jameson
it
medical analysis as to why Caleb Williams was limping with a hand injury.
Oh, jeez.
It's called
Well, we need to-
factitious disorder.
Oh my God. We need to do it.
Thousands is the term.
Oh jeez.
All right,
Okay,
cut
we
us
need
off,
to do it.
cut
We
us
need to
off.
do. We do need to do a video on like how to bandwagon TCU properly. So that I think
Let's
that could
do
be
it.
funny, like Frog School. But anyway,
A nice little,
right,
a nice little short Frogs 101. Man, MILFs 101. Man, I love frogs.
I was actually thinking, that'll be the
That'd be
title.
great.
That'll be the clickbait title. I was actually thinking about an off-season pod where it's just me and Blake, and we have a full hour chalked off for me to just dump all my conspiracy theories about why TCU is the best position team in college football, and Blake to just go, "Yep."
I love it. But look, that's all we have for the weekend spread. But make sure if you're watching live and care about OU football, tune in later as we break down the OU bowl game, whatever that may be. And keep it with us as we continue to follow bowl season in college football. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate all of y'all watching along. Really good crowd today. So much appreciated, of course. So I'm going to stop talking now and end the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to our partners, DraftKings. And guys, thanks for being with us all season long. For me, Jameson, Ty, and the captain, Boatin Blake, this has been the Weekend Spread. Have a good week out there. Good luck out there.